Is Monday morning here in Noblesville, Indiana. It's bright and sunshiny. I hope it's sunshiny wherever you are. I am Mayor Chris Jensen. We're in a brand new red vest today, Kristen Boyce, by the way.
Very
Uh,
nice.
Thank you. Thank you. Switching up some colors here today. Welcome to another edition of Mental Health Monday, a program we launched myself in conjunction with my good friend Kristen Boyce, owner of Pathways to Healing Counseling here in Noblesville. Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning, Mayor Jensen. It's good to be back. It's been a
Yeah,
while.
it has been a while. We had a little fall break for some folks. Hopefully, people were able to relax and take a little time off. But this is a program that Kristen and I started really at Kristen's suggestion about 2.5 years ago, really to help tackle the stigma around mental health and have some open, honest conversations. Certainly, COVID was the time when we launched this. That was the really what predicated this conversation. But certainly now it has really boomed into a much larger conversation. So we're glad that you are joining us here today on the show. If you have any questions or thoughts as we go along here on today's show, chime in. If you want to just say hi that you're listening, that's fine too. We always welcome that. We know we have listeners and watchers, Kristen, from all over the world, down in our good friends in Brazil, the country, tuning in. I know I have some friends in Texas, all over the country that tune in and watch us. So thank you to all of us that do that. We're going to tackle some interesting topics today. We're going to talk about loneliness. Kristen and I were chatting a little bit before the show started today about how she has seen in her practice a lot of loneliness these days. And then I asked if we folded in maybe a conversation a little bit about feelings around the holidays that Julie Jensen and I were just discussing this morning, that it's hard to believe next Monday is Halloween. And then I feel like after that, it just kind of takes off. So there are a lot of emotions that come with holiday time. Loneliness certainly fits into that, one of those emotions too. But so we're going to tackle all those issues here. But before we tackle anything, like we always do. And I actually, Kristen was down at Indiana University last Wednesday speaking to a class and had them do some square breathing with me, which was really good for some college kids. So, but we're going to do a little square breathing exercise to get our mindsets. So, Kristen, take it away.
I love that you were doing this with college students
Yep.
because there's a lot of pressure and stress, and it's helpful for all ages. So anybody can do this at any point in any time. Square breathing is something that helps regulate our nervous system, takes us back to center into the present moment. So we're not in the past, we're not in the future. We are really trying to get grounded into the present moment. So I always start with feet on the floor. That helps my body center in, or if you're standing, just pressing your feet into the floor. We will take a big inhale through our nose. We will exhale out of our mouths slowly, like you're cooling soup. And we'll do 2 breaths together just to practice. So let's press into your feet, inhale through your nose, hold, and release. I'm already feeling that in my shoulders, the release, the tension and tightness that I'm carrying. So let's do one more together. Big, deep inhale through your nose and out your mouth. Just check in. Notice what you're feeling. Welcome all your emotions. Bring it all to the table. And throughout your day, I welcome you to do 5 to 6 breaths an hour to really practice, like really cueing the brain to breathe when you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed, when you're feeling lonely, feeling sad, maybe you're feeling angry, maybe you're feeling disappointed. This helps you process and come back to center so you can access the prefrontal cortex, which is the CEO of the brain. It's the rational part of our brain, because oftentimes we're in the brainstem. We're in that fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or sometimes flop. That's our faint response. And we can actually access a more rational part of our brain when we take deep breaths.
I don't know about you, but I instantly feel almost like a tingling in my face, kind of working its way down. It is actually a really great feeling when I do that, and it is such important. I was actually on the phone on Friday with a good friend of mine, Aaron Smith, who's on the city council, and I was flipped about something. And I just had to remind myself to breathe through that. But it is just such a simple thing to do. It's something our body does on its own. But also, and Chris, you want to touch on, I've used the example of having kind of the lower lung area is where a lot of that anxiety-ridden air is. So I've been telling people about the importance of clearing the lungs.
Yeah. So a big belly, like pulling the belly into the spine, takes you down into that lower part of your lungs. Like you're really getting a deep breath.
Yep.
So a lot of times clients will come in and they'll go, I'll say, okay, we're going to breathe together, literally, and they're not really breathing with me, and because they're kind of off someplace else. And so really focusing in on taking a big belly breath, really focusing on belly to the spine, helps us clear out the lungs, helps us really release that tension and tightness in the body, and helps us to focus on what matters and letting go of what doesn't. I know it sounds like really, but we're shifting gears. If you can think of a gear shift, we're almost shifting gears from the lower part of the brain and into the upper part of the brain by accessing the deeper part of our lungs. So it's really important that you go, and I'm almost pushing my belly into my spine to access the lower parts of the lung to clear it all out.
Yep. I always equate it to when we clean our garage out, we take everything out and then sweep it all out. I always mentally do that. Clear the garage out before you put it all back in.
Oh,
So,
you're good.
there you go.
That's a great metaphor.
That's what I
And a
use.
lot of times people think, well, I've stuck things in a junk drawer or I
No.
put it in the closet. Like we all have that junk room
Yep.
where we put everything in there and we don't want to open the door because we feel so overwhelmed. We're like, where do I even start? But the first thing to do is take a deep breath. And when you can start little by little, that's what we're doing. It's starting little by little. So I love that metaphor.
Yep. Well, good. I'm actually reading a book called Atomic Habits that's talking about
Oh, yes,
making
I read that book.
1% changes. So actually, Sarah Reed gave that to me. I'm reading it as of last night, which I hate to read. So that's a big step for me. But anyways, let's go on and let's tackle the conversation around loneliness. I will admit, Kristen Boyce, this is probably not my strength. I'm not sure I'm a lonely person. I've never really been in that setting. So I really would love for you to talk a little bit about kind of what that looks like in people, what that feeling may be. And I know you said you had some statistics around it. Obviously, we saw a lot of loneliness during COVID. Obviously, that is creeping itself back into our society in a major way. So I'll let you kind of talk to what loneliness is and how we approach it.
Yeah, so loneliness, let's just talk about the birthplace of loneliness. So when we think of trauma, and it's important to understand this, we split from our authentic self. And what do we mean by that? We're splitting off from our emotions and even our body so we can feel like we belong in our family or we can feel accepted. We don't consciously know we're doing this, but that creates a split from ourself. And that can feel lonely in and of itself to feel like I have to be somebody else, and we're not again conscious of that, in order to feel love and belonging. And so it really is the roots are deep. The roots are deep. And it even goes back to attachment with a primary parent. Was the parent emotionally available? Was the parent consistent? Was the parent available to process your emotions? Most of us didn't get that memo or didn't know how important that was. That can lead to long feelings of loneliness that live inside the body. The second component is to loneliness is it lives in all of us. And so even if we're not conscious of it, we can feel lonely. For example, in children, if we are not asked to a birthday party, that can feel lonely. We can feel left out of a friend group. We can feel like no one wants to sit with us at lunch. The list goes on, but it begins we can all identify at some point of feeling lonely. I remember one time on the bus where no one wanted to sit with me on a field trip. And I remember feeling so lonely and like, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't anyone want to sit with me? And that I can viscerally feel in my nervous system. So we all have had experiences, or maybe you've gone through grief and loss and you feel like no one understands. No one gets it, or life goes on for people. And while you're meanwhile feeling like you're processing your emotions over here and nobody kind of sees you or acknowledges that. So let's go over the statistics that are staggering right now. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
So is there a differentiation between physical loneliness and maybe feeling lonely, isolated mental loneliness? Does that make sense? Because I guess I didn't view it until I kind of viewed it the same until you just said that about like maybe you went through a loss and you feel like no one understands you. I don't view that as what I would immediately think of as lonely. I would think of the situation like on the bus where no one wants to sit with you.
Yeah, that's a good point. So loneliness can be both physical, relational, and emotional.
Okay.
It can be all of those. It can hit all the buckets or it can maybe hit one of the buckets. So we might feel lonely. We know that, for example, 79% of people, young adults, and I wrote this down because it's so staggering, between 18 and 24 feel alone. Okay,
79.
we may have people 79%. This is a huge number that we're not talking about. Why do 79% of 18 to 24-year-olds feel alone? They may be living with people. So this is the misnomer. I could be living with somebody and still feel really alone and feel unseen, unknown, uncared about, unloved, even though physically people are there. That's why emotional presence, where you can sit with somebody, you can acknowledge them, you can attune to them, you can see them, helps you feel less alone. So here's the antidote to loneliness. And this is something that we don't talk about very often, is oftentimes empathy can help you feel less alone. Empathy towards yourself and other people. So when you sit in front of somebody and you see who they are, they feel safe enough to share with you, they will feel less alone. And young adults right now aren't getting that experience of somebody really seeing them, because guess what we're doing? We're on this.
Yeah.
Okay. And here's the other statistics on social media that I have to share. 71% of social people that are on social media say they feel alone using social media. 71% do not feel more connected using social media. Here's the other statistics. We spend an average of 2 hours and 27 minutes on social media a day. The average American spends 2 hours and 27 minutes on social media a day. And Facebook users, 28% of Facebook users say they're not even sure those are their real friends. So there's a loneliness component, even though there is a component of connection on social media. We're seeing a byproduct of feeling more alone because they feel left out. People feel left out. They feel like, well, they're living this life that looks all great. And what about me? I feel less than. I feel shame. I'm not taking my kids here and there. I'm not on this vacation. I'm not going to the party I wasn't invited to. So our inner child can get activated. We're seeing the higher statistics, and I'm not saying it's just because of social media, but we are seeing a correlation between social media and 18 to 24-year-olds feeling more alone. And it's something we got to pay attention to. Like, if we don't start having a conversation about this, we are going to perpetuate individualism, which means I'm going to be so focused on me and my life that I'm not going to show up for someone emotionally because I can't get out of my own way. And for 18 to 24-year-olds, that's normal. Like, that is part of their the brain is human development. The brain isn't developed until 25 fully. And so we are in a little bit about me, phase in life. We need to show up for ourselves and other people with intention of being present and attuning. That is the answer to loneliness. And when we can befriend ourselves, and here's the next part that's so hard for people to really get, and even including myself, in order to grow, we have to be vulnerable. In order to grow, it's necessary for vulnerability. What does vulnerability mean? It means I'm taking a risk of emotional exposure and hurt. That is a risk we take. What is our capacity to tolerate that? But I can't have true connection and feel less lonely if I don't share what's going on. Maybe I need to join a 12-step group. Maybe I need to join like a grief share group, or maybe I need a divorce recovery group. Maybe, I'm just naming these for clients of what I recommend. Maybe there is a church group. Maybe there is a friend group, or maybe you're going to join a knitting class, a crochet class. Maybe you're going to run a marathon. Whatever that looks like. Maybe you're going to join a workout community. Maybe you're going to be mothers. We know that young mothers, 30% of them feel extremely lonely. And we're not talking about that. Or young parents feel lonely. 30% report feeling that they're in this alone. So look at the statistics. I mean, we're looking at, and then if we look at 65 and up, we're looking at 41% feel alone. So 65 and up, 41%, that's almost half feel alone. And what do we want to do to change this? I mean, these are some staggering statistics.
Yeah. So walk me back to the social media component, because I think that's really fascinating. Obviously, it's totally encompassing our life right now, and I am just as guilty. The 2.5 hours is probably spot on, at least for what I do on a daily basis. So really, what you're saying is people aren't necessarily going to social media to fill that loneliness void as much as they are feeling lonely based on what they're seeing amongst other people on social media.
I
Is
think
that
it's a little bit of both.
okay? All right.
People are feeling alone. They go to social media. I also think it can create, like, I was fine before I got on social media, and now I saw all these pictures of people going out together, and no one asked me to go. So now I'm feeling lonely. So I think it can be and in both. And here's the takeaway for social media. There are some good components. It's not all, so it's not an all or nothing, good or bad. We're noticing, how do you feel when you're on social media? We do know that people that have given up social media feel less lonely. And that's an interesting, I don't have that number in front of me, but that was an interesting research element, that the people that got off social media actually started to feel less lonely. And is that because of comparison? Is that because of not feeling like they belong? Is that because it would evoke shame? We don't have that data to say that's exactly why. Now, I think we are diving into that more. So it's an interesting analysis of, how do you feel? This is the key takeaway. How do you feel when you're on social media? What gets brought up in you? What is the stories in your mind? Like, is it a shame story saying, I'm just not worth it, I'm not lovable, no one cares about me? Is that the narrative? Or do you get on social media and you're not feeling any of those things? It's really about noticing what goes on with your thoughts, feelings, and body sensations when you do want to use social media, and then when you're on social media.
Fascinating. Like I said, I think social media has completely changed how we interact with people. I always, I use the comparison too because I get a lot of communication on social media. Obviously, I'm communicating with the public right now on social media. I have had such more meaningful conversations, though, by asking someone to have a cup of coffee with me, or even just pick up the phone and have a conversation versus a social media interaction. It just is a totally different situation. And I imagine that just comes down to just communicating and seeing people.
It really is. I mean, think about, we didn't used to have the phones. We didn't used to have social media. You would have to pick up the phone and call somebody,
Yeah.
or you'd have to set a meeting up and meet. And there's something to be said about body language, facial expressions, seeing how, that connection that can happen through that. And I'm not saying it can't happen through this, because we do teletherapy and it's just as effective. So I think it can be possible when you see faces. I prefer voice memos even over texting. So someone can hear my voice instead of misinterpreting maybe a text. So I will take my little button and I'll use a little voice memo, and I'll send them a voice memo, thinking of you, wondering how you're doing. I hope you're doing well. You are on my heart today, and I really care about you. Those mean more even than a text. A text is nice, but we want to take it to the next level. Then we can meet in person. Do you want to meet for a cup of coffee? Like you said, you're experiencing the difference and the power in person versus, doing it over social media or a text.
Well, you taught your circle well because your husband always now sends me voice memos versus a text, which I didn't realize until why. But it is great to hear his voice, and I can kind of get a sense of what he usually has a question about something, and I can read his sense of just inflection in your voice, which is so different than via text. So kudos. Now I know the secrets, the voice family communication. That's great. So let's turn a little bit. Solutions for loneliness. What actions can we take? I don't want to just discuss the problem. I would love to talk about, kind of some tangible ways forward for people. If you've heard this today and think, oh, I maybe am suffering a little loneliness, what's our options here?
The first thing is working on that. I talked about trauma and that split off from your authentic self, and how we split from our emotions and split from our body sensations. That's where I begin with people. It's almost like befriending figuring out one, who am I really? Like, who did I have to be in my family? Did I have to be the hero? Was I the scapegoat? Was I the problem child? What was I the caregiver? Was I the parentified child, meaning I had to take care of somebody? That causes you to split off and not go through the developmental phases as we're meant to do. And so that's where we have to begin. It sounds daunting, and yet really it's freedom and liberation. And so we start with that. What do you like? What do you want? Who are you really? Describe your personality. Is that a conditioned part of you, or is that your authentic self? And when we can start doing that, we can start feeling less alone because we're not abandoning our true self. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you got to start working on being more vulnerable. So it means putting yourself out there, meaning joining a group. I kind of shared a little bit about that. That's scary for people because we're like, we can be rejected. We can feel like we're not good enough. Yet we're not going to help ourselves at the same time build new connections. Reaching out to an old friend, checking in, seeing how they're doing, dropping them a card in the mail, leaving them a voice memo. So I recommend people put 3 people on your list that you're going to either send a card to, a voice memo to, or call. And you're going to reach out and just say, hey, I am so grateful for you. I just wanted you to know you made such an impact on my life, or I miss seeing you. I would love to get together for lunch. Just thinking about you. How have you been? I mean, you can do that however you want to. And if that feels too much, maybe it's 3 people a week. Set a goal to reach out, because here's where it gets us stuck. Well, they didn't reach out to me, so I'm not going to reach out to them. How old does that sound? I'm in my inner child. Well, they didn't text me back, and so I'm not going to text them. People, this is so
Rise
hard,
above.
right? We got to go, you know what? I'm not helping myself out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be intentional of being a good friend. If we want a good friend, I've got to be a good friend. And that's tough because we've been conditioned to, well, if they're not doing it for you, don't do it for them. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have boundaries and you don't communicate how you feel. What I'm inviting you into is showing up empathically, listening and attuning and checking in emotionally with somebody, or just sharing your gratitude for them. That can help you tenfold. We know the other statistic that I found that was interesting is 2/5 of older people say that the company that they keep is their TV. Okay. That they feel like the company that they keep
40%.
is their TV.
Hmm.
So this goes way back because growing up, maybe you had the TV as, when I got home from school, that's what we did. We turned on Oprah, we watched TV, and that was kind of our friend, so to speak. And so we developed this need for sound. We developed this need for, feels like there's some connection there with the TV. But what we're doing is we're perpetuating more loneliness because we're staying isolated.
Mm-hmm.
Stepping out of your comfort zone, it's putting yourself out there. Volunteerism is a great way to give back. I'm a big fan of volunteering, and you're doing it without needing anything back. It's a 2-for deal. You get something and they get something, but I'm not doing it to get something back. It's not a one-up position to say, oh, I'm better than, or look at me, I'm such a good person, I'm volunteering. It's to say, out of the kindness of my heart, I want to give back.
And
And
isn't there some thought? This is just Chris Jensen speaking off the cuff, but especially in an older generation, there tends to be empty nesters, for example, that are so used to raising kids, and that's what they want to be wanted. They need to be. I think about my mom all the time. She would spend so much time raising us, and so kind of that volunteer component is probably really good because there is a sense of I am helping this organization, or I'm volunteering for this group, or this, whatever it may be. It kind of helps fill kind of a dual void, somewhat of a loneliness void, but also then a feeling wanted and bettering something. Am I on the right track there?
absolutely.
Okay.
It helps you feel there. I know people want to feel needed and wanted, and it helps you. And that may not be the motivating factor, but you feel like you're making a difference. There's purpose and meaning. And a lot of time with loneliness, we'll see a correlation between not feeling purpose and not feeling any meaning, and obviously lack of connection. And so that can help fill that bucket. Another thing I see people doing that I think is really helpful is if they pick up something, like I know one of my friends started a book club, and that was really scary. She's like, what if nobody wants to do it? What if, all the what ifs? And she said, I'm going to do it anyways. She started the book club, and it's been one of the greatest things that's happened because she stepped out of her comfort zone. Now, people have started pickleball, so they'll start pickleball groups, or, some, like my husband loves barefooting. Barefoot water skiing. Who knew? Okay, there's a group out there for that. You may figure out you have an interest in something. It could be Harry Potter. It could be, you name it. And you find other people that have those same interests, and all of a sudden you're starting to build commonality and connection. And that's another option to really offset this feeling of nobody gets me, nobody cares about me. And once we start putting ourselves out there, it's scary at the beginning, and you have to build a tolerance for they can't meet your needs. That's not the point. So if you're going in it wanting someone to meet your needs, you're going to be set up for disappointment. You have to meet those needs. That's where we can get off track.
Yeah. And you had mentioned, part of this conversation is about meaningful connection. Well, we have a few minutes left here. Any other final thoughts on kind of making meaningful connection? You talked a lot about finding common interests, common denominators when it comes to those things, but what else around meaningful connection can we be focused on?
Here's the main thing about meaningful connection. What if we could connect to our common humanity? That nobody is better than, nobody is less than, that we are all in this journey called life with heartache, heartbreak, pain, suffering. Good things can happen too. Connection. What if we could acknowledge each other in that way? That's how we develop meaningful connection. It's not all about me. It's about me being able to see other people and their own humanity and their own journey and their own pain. And how we get there is when we acknowledge our own pain. Now I have empathy for other people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much more empathy now. If you're sick and someone else gets sick, you're like, oh, or you have a loss. The empathy just flows from your soul, not because you need something back. It's because you're like, I see you. I see that pain. That's how we get to more deeper connection through more vulnerability in our emotional journeys.
So we're going to be more vulnerable is what you're telling me.
Well, it's scary. It's scary. And the payoff is freedom and connection.
Yeah. I will comment one last thing. You mentioned about reaching out to people. We were driving down to Disney a few weeks ago, and I have a good fraternity brother who lives in Atlanta, Georgia, who I haven't seen in probably 10 years at least. And I was like, I should reach out and see him. Kind of back and forth, like, oh, he's probably busy. Well, we ended up stopping at their house on the way home. And it was just one of the most fill your bucket up hours, just spending time with him, his family, our kids got to play. And I'm just so thankful that I did that. And I think the message is just assume the best and just enjoy it. You'll be so thankful that you did something like that and reached it. Everyone's gonna be delighted to hear from you. So take that risk along the way and it will absolutely help fill your bucket up a little bit.
I love that.
Yeah.
So a memorable experience for you and your family.
Yeah. Yes, I loved it. So my 5-year-old Hank was asking about his friend Henry, who lives in Atlanta, just last night. So anyways, well, Kristen, this has been an awesome conversation. We didn't even get to the holiday conversation, which is fine. We'll talk about it in 2 weeks because we had a lot to talk about loneliness. This was incredibly applicable. And I said I started at the very beginning and said I wasn't sure if I'd be able to relate to this conversation. It related way more than I even thought. So thank you as always. If someone's struggling right now, right here, and they need some help beyond what Chris and Kristen can give them on a Monday morning, where do they need to go?
988, the beautiful invention of 988. I'm so thankful for it. If you're feeling suicidal or a friend's feeling or family member, please reach out. You can text or call 988. And that is the lifeline right now for a lot of people. And it's doing so much good. There are professionals on the other end. And also there's local therapists. So please know that there is help available and you don't have to do this alone.
Absolutely. Thank God for 988. It's an amazing new thing. So we'll stay safe, Kristen. Thanks as always. And we'll be back in another 2 weeks to continue this conversation.
Thank you.